So you're tired of talking to ChatGPT in a window. You don't feel intimate with it. You feel like you can't go and propose to it just because it's a little bit robot-like. It's not real. It's not helping you. It doesn't talk to you. Well, we're going to change that. How are we able to build AI systems that feel like AGI systems, that can trick your end users or yourself into feeling like it is a true super intelligent assistant? Well, I'm going to show you how we do it at Opulence for the construction businesses that we build for, but also in general, just how you can think about building these types of systems to actually achieve that level of true usefulness. As you guys might see, I have a different room, no horse painting anymore. Unfortunately, I was not able to bring that back with me. I'm back at school, so we have the beautiful set. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so today we're going to be going over a quick overview of the current limitations of AI in its form right now. Then I'm going to kind of briefly talk about the AGI system structure. So this is how you want to structure your systems to achieve an AGI-like feel. And then I'm going to go over what I call query grouping, and I'll demonstrate that through a real automation that we have implemented into many different construction businesses. And then further down, like I said, the technical implementation, I'll go and break down what's happening in that exact workflow. And yeah, real business examples. That's kind of not what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, let's get into it. So what are the current limitations of today's AI? We're just going to breeze through this to not keep you guys bored. So like a previous video I talked about extensively, it's locked in a chat window. So the chat window prison. LLMs and AI right now, in its form of how you might have interacted with them the most, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, or Grok, right now operate in a closed box of chat window. You give it a question and it will give you back a response. It's pretty much a glorified Google search engine. Even in this form, they're capable of some pretty cool things, but this form alone is not going to allow you to build a system that actually feels like an AGI-like system. I'm actually going to be doing some live editing. So instead of saying they have no memory at all, it's just not the case. They do have memory, but they have surface level memory. So they'll know what you said 10 minutes ago or even a week ago with your chat, but it doesn't learn on your company's data or it doesn't learn different patterns because of the actual architecture of the backend data systems that power them. You know, these chatbots are mainly for consumers. If you're using OpenAI ChatGPT, it's mainly a consumer facing, and they don't open up a widespread ability for you to really get in there and manipulate how you want your data to be stored, and that is a key factor for, you know, limiting how useful and AGI like the AIs can feel. Next up, we have zero integration, or very limited integration. So I know ChatGPT can integrate with your Google Drive, but that's really just scratching the surface to what true integration looks like. True integration looks like every single part of your day or every single part of a business system, giving an AI the ability to interact with, make changes to, or create reports on. ChatGPT alone can't coordinate with your suppliers or update your inventory or mess with your schedule. It's not able to do that. In its current state, it's just completely disconnected from actual business operations. And next, because it is so disconnected from actual business operations, it has zero proactive monitoring. What do I mean by this? So these systems wait for you to ask them questions. The trigger for the chatbot to initiate and start is you going to it and asking it a question. And that is very unuseful and impractical. Most businesses will use ChatGPT or other chatbots to draft out emails or summarize certain reports, but it really is truly just scratching the surface of what can be accomplished with this technology. And so the result, businesses are stuck with, like I said, these basic email writing tools where they have to go and actually ask the AI itself to write it and then wait for a response. So now let's get into the actual AGI system architecture. What does it take to build a system that feels like AGI or a super helpful assistant? So the very first step in this process is one voice and a complex background. So what does this mean? Users need to have a unified front-end experience when interacting with any system that you build. Whether you choose it to be a voice agent, whether you choose it to be a dashboard or a traditional chatbot, the users should only be interacting with what seems like a single agent. But the reality is there's a lot more agents and complexity that happens that's hidden behind that veil. So going off of that same idea, if we have the end user only talking to that one agent, or what it feels like that one assistant, in reality that is kind of what's happening, except that one assistant isn't doing all of the tasks or doing all of the thinking that user might want it to do. In reality, it's delegating through many different types of systems to help it accomplish all of the user requests that might be given to it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of group these 3 subpoints together by just showing you kind of what I'm talking about. So what you're looking at here is the example of an executive agent that is just focused on speaking with the customer, understanding their intent, compiling a plan to then execute, and then actually going out to execute different sub-agents who will actually go and carry out those tasks. A big mistake that a lot of people make when they're building these types of automations or trying to sell AI agentic systems is they do not accurately break up different responsibilities to different types of agents. They overload 1 or 2 agents with a bunch of different tasks, and they question why their system is not reliable and why it doesn't work. And the reality is agents are pretty incredible, but they're not incredible alone. They're incredible when they all work together. And that's what a good example of this is. So the full picture of this system is even more than just this section, but the actual section that goes and talks with the customer is just this part right here. So before I dive a little bit deeper into the nuts and bolts of this specific workflow, I want to go ahead and kind of show a cool thought exercise or strategy for actually building this type of system and how to think about it. And I call it query grouping. So I want to go over the query grouping strategy and how I think about it. And this is how before I ever started creating what I call the master scheduler, which was one AGI-like system that I built for construction scheduling. This is the mental exercise that I worked through to start to even build it. So I called it query grouping. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to map your domain. So you're going to decide what domain you're building for: personal health, financials, some type of business domain, construction. And then you want to narrow that down to a subdomain. So for example, I did construction and scheduling. Maybe you were going to do, you could say fitness, but then maybe diet. So fitness as the domain, but then diet as that subdomain. You could do marketing, and then that subdomain could be email outreach or cold email campaigns. So after we have narrowed out our domain down to a subdomain, now we can start thinking about different key actions. And I'll go through and kind of show what this means. So like I said, we have construction up here. The subdomain is scheduling. And then what we have down here are actions. So for example, we have an action as create a new schedule. That's what we would want to do within a scheduling system. Maybe we want to text crew members. We'd probably want to have some type of system to scan and identify potential conflicts on that schedule. And then we'd also want to have a different portion that could handle making edits. So essentially what we're doing right here is we're really defining the different sub-employee agent tools that we're going to be creating in order to carry out any type of user query that could be asked. So the next step after that is actually trying to brainstorm what are potential queries that could be asked to my agent in my system that could trigger this specific tool or this specific action. So if we wanted to create a new schedule, a potential query could be, we just got the Henderson office project. Can you create a schedule for a 12-week commercial build? So that query would go to the executive assistant, but then it would want to route it down to this create new schedules part of the system. Or potentially, I need a new timeline for the warehouse renovation starting next month. Well, that query would probably need to be mapped to create a new schedule. For maybe a text crew members action, send tomorrow's assignments to all crews. Well, that would probably need to be carried out or delegated to whatever text crew member section is in that system. Let the electrical team know we're starting the Johnson project 2 days early. Well, that query needs to be routed to the text crew members. Furthermore, for conflict resolution, the plumbing and electrical teams are both scheduled in the same place next Tuesday, so that query could get routed to the conflict resolution agent, which would have the logic for solving that problem. And then finally, to potentially make some edits to the schedule, you could say push the Morrison project flooring back 2 weeks. That would be routed to the make edits to schedule section of the system. So now that we kind of understand this brain map, let's go and take a look at the actual master scheduler system to break down how this works in practice. So like I said, all of those sub actions in this example are different agents. So you'll see here this executive agent is able to in N8N use a tool called execute a sub workflow, which executes an entirely different AI agent system to actually carry out that. So this project management tool is in charge of ingesting or creating new tasks, and then also creating a overview status of the schedule. This guy, the scheduling engine, is in charge of rescheduling specific tasks, handling conflicts, and then also deleting tasks. The crew manager is in charge of getting different crew availability and assigning crew, and it can also text crew. And then the conflict resolution agent is supposed to scan for conflicts, it's supposed to resolve them, and propose solutions. So remember, the user would only see some type of interface with the front system, and they might think that they're only talking to one type of agent. But in reality, if we tried to give this executive assistant full reign on all of these different Airtable tools to carry out each different problem or task, it would fail miserably. So we need to intelligently subdivide each tasks into their own buckets, so then they can be routed to. It's just like how a business works. You have different categories that are executed upon. There's a chain of command, and tasks are delegated accordingly, and it's the exact same thing. So some steps about technical implementation. What I'll actually also put here is steps in order to get reliability in the system are three main things. So I used what I call a command system, and then I used a query parser, and finally I made sure that these steps were carried out one step at a time. So let's go ahead and actually look at what this means within the respect to the actual build. So let's start with what I call the query parser. So I was having trouble with the executive assistant understanding what the user meant when it was asking questions or wanted to carry something out. So if the user just asked it, what does my schedule look like this week, or I don't like how the schedule looks like, or something like that, the executive assistant already had such a giant prompt for it to do query interpretation or to understand the meaning. It was just a lot for it. So instead, I broke up that process right there. So the first agent that the message gets sent to is actually the query parser. And this agent's entire job is to understand the intent behind the query and then create a list of commands or steps that the executive assistant simply needs to follow. Basically, a list of tool calls that it needs to follow. And that gets us right into the command system that I used. First, I'll go ahead and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So let's just say we open this chat and I say, can you give me an overview of next week's schedule? I'm just going to go through the query parser. And then we're going to see it spit out some commands. So this right here would not actually be responded. I disconnected it from the rest of the system just to show this first part. So instructions: provide an overview of the schedule for the week starting August 4th to 2025. As no project is specified, a schedule overview across all projects is required. Step 1. Request high-level status for next week. Project ID, null. Steps: Step 1, tool, project management, command, get schedule status. Okay, this part is very key. So the commands part of this system and how to basically get a more reliable AGI-like system is what I use as tool names and command names. So instead of your tools being, oh, okay, we're zooming in. Hey. So instead of the tool call being, let's say, a normal tool that you would give an agent in N8N, the tool that you're giving it is, remember, this entire sub-agent tool. So you're actually giving it access to another AI agent as a tool. But this tool named is the project management agent or tool. So tool is project management. You'll see that lines up right here. And then the command is the get schedule status. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we're going to go in here to show you. So I'm going to open up the prompt of the actual project management agent, and I'll describe to you exactly what that looks like. A lot of stuff here. But if we're going to scroll down here to this command right here. So here's that command, get schedule status. So this command is asking for a high-level progress report for any project. Use the content of the incoming query to understand which project it is coming in for, and assemble a high-level progress report for it. So basically what's happening here is, instead of making that executive assistant go and carry out or try to give instructions to their sub-agents each time, I spelled out exactly what I want to happen at each stage with this command system. So if the query parser determines that in order to solve the user's query, it needs to get a get schedule status, then simply what's going to happen is it's going to send that to the executive assistant, and it's going to say, hey, we need to get a schedule overview. So call your project management right here. So call your project management tool and then tell your project management tool the command get schedule status. So that project management agent's going to just read in basically, let's open that back up. It's going to say, give some context about the user query, but then it's going to say run command get schedule status. And then it's going to go through and look at its prompt to go ahead and understand exactly what it takes to carry out that goal. So I found this system of tool calls and commands to be a lot more reliable than just letting the agents try to figure out what they need to do. Because the beauty about AI agents is they do have this freedom. They do have the ability to think, but that's also their biggest downfall, because it leads to them taking actions on their own when they shouldn't be taking actions. You know, if a lot of times when I wanted an overview of the schedule before I had this type of system, I would get the executive assistant to call different types of tools, and basically it would take many different paths to get the same outcome, and the outcome would be different. So I needed some type of consistency within the system, and that's why I created this commands. So I have a total of 16, or I think this is 12. 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I guess there's 11 right here. 11 different commands that are routed to these 4 different agents. And in aggregate, these commands can be stacked on top of each other to actually carry out user queries. So this example that I gave you, let's see. Yep, it only has 1 command in it, but very, very quickly can it be there are commands that stack on top of each other. And that's where this looping function comes in. So the executive assistant was having trouble basically understanding a list of 5 different steps and executing all on them at the same time. So instead what I did was I made it so each instruction gets itemized and it gets run through the executive assistant. So this first step will get run through, and then the second step will get run through once that first one is done. And then if there's a third step, it'll get run through and run through. So you can see the master planner and, you know, the understanding happens from the query parser, and the actual actions get taken out by the executive assistant, or the delegation gets taken out by the executive assistant, and then the true actions get taken out by the sub agents. And this is essentially exactly how you want to build some type of multi-agent system that can feel like AGI. Right now, we have this interfacing with a normal chat. We had it hooked up to a text message interface. But what we're working on right now is getting it hooked up to a voice interface. So what will happen is, instead of this query parser talking through chat, it's going to talk through voice to voice. And I'm going to be very excited to show you guys that soon. So you'll be on the lookout for that video. If you actually want to go see the executive agent, or I mean the master scheduler agent work, I have 2 other videos that show it working. They have a cool demo. If you are a construction manager or work in the construction industry, we build solutions for you. So please do not hesitate to reach out. You can go visit our website at opulencefunnels.com, or you can leave a comment and I can go ahead and reach out. But if you found this at all interesting or useful, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. I really love reading them. And don't give me a dislike. Like, seriously, guys, it keeps me up at night. I can't handle it. Don't dislike my video, please. And with that, I think I'll see you guys. Thank you.